If you could build the perfect villain in a lab, what would you give them? The voice of a god? The mind of a monster? The face you can't forget? Today, we're stitching together the ultimate villain, piece by piece. But for every perfect part, there's a version that ruins everything. We're building our own Frankenstein and warning you what not to include. Let's go. To build a truly unforgettable villain, you have to nail the first thing the audience sees: their face and the feeling they bring into the room. Their presence. That first impression is everything. Think about when Death first walked into that tavern in Puss in Boots. The candlelight goes out, whistling starts, and then there he is, a massive white wolf, just sitting there with a black hood. The moment he reveals those blazing red eyes and sharp teeth, you feel a chill. Sometimes those eyes seem to bleed into the entire scene, such as when he first injures Puss, and when he chases the arrogant cat out of the crystal cave. This, you tell yourself, is a force of nature that wants nothing but blood.
Everyone thinks they'll be the one to defeat me, but no one's escaped me yet.
That kind of self-assurance, along with the voice and attitude producing it, makes his presence frightening yet charismatic. Voiced by Wagner Moura, everything Death says carries weight and panache. But there's more to the vibe he commands. He carries those two scary sickles that can snap together into a double-bladed scythe. And on one of them, he has 8 little cat heads crossed out. That little detail tells the whole story. He is here specifically for Puss and the lives he wasted.
Slow, sloppy,
You can tell that he is bored and simply disappointed that his prey is not living up to the legend even before he says it. That calm confidence is the core of his terrifying presence. But here is where things get really interesting. What if a villain doesn't show you their real face and yet still commands a formidable presence? That is where Amon from Avatar: The Legend of Korra comes in. Amon steps onto the scene with a perfect unnerving presence, even though his face is completely hidden behind a mask. The mask acts as a cover for his real identity and his new emotionless face, making him seem mysterious and almost godly. He moves with a quiet authority and speaks in a way that makes you believe every word, even when he is doing something truly terrible, like taking away a person's bending.
Cleansed of your impurity.
His presence is so formidable because of the shocking power he shows. The mask, the mystery, and the fact that benders were suddenly powerless created a legendary figure who was impossible to defeat. But do you know what's really wild? Even when his face is revealed and he is exposed as a waterbender named Notak, he is still scary. Why? Because the audience realized that the power he wielded, the fear he created, and the purpose he had were all real. The twist just made him more horrifying and complicated. Now compare that to Hans from Frozen. Hans does not have a mask. Yet he hides behind a personality that works like one. At first, he presents himself as the perfect prince. Kind eyes, soft smile, and a charm. But the problem is that the second identity he shows, the villain identity, does not match the first in any convincing way. The switch feels disconnected because the two roles look like they were pulled from different stories. And unlike Death or Amon, Hans's presence never stands tall. He has the face of a pretty boy instead of a threat. Even when he turns on Elsa, he still looks like the same soft prince, just one with a frown. There's nothing in his face that warns you to step back, nothing that makes your chest tighten, and no moment where the air or color changes when he walks into a room. This is why the face and the presence matter so much. If you build a villain who can strike fear simply by being seen, you already win half the battle. So, when you start shaping your villain, ask yourself a simple question. If this character walked into a room right now, how would your chest feel? Once you have that answer, do this next thing. Next, give your villain brains. Yeah, we get it. Every villain has a brain, but can they all use it? We released a video some time ago arguing about how to write a villain that is smarter than you versus how not to. And guess what we discovered? That some recent villains are not actually that clever. We mentioned people like the Screenslaver and Professor Callahan. They started smart, but seemed to forget how to use their brain as their stories unfolded. You can go check out that video later. Anyway, here's the thing. There's one villain we could have added to that video, one villain who was simply brainless. Sir Miles Axelrod from Cars 2. Axelrod looks like a nice, respectable car. He's rich, famous, and he's promoting this new clean fuel called All in All. But when we find out he's the bad guy, it's simply ridiculous. So check this out. Axelrod wants to make alternative fuel look bad, so everyone goes back to using gasoline. But why? Well, because he's secretly the head of the Lemon Cars, which make their money selling gasoline. And here's the part that makes absolutely no sense. His plan is too complicated and costs way too much money. He had to spend tons of cash to create the all-in-all fuel brand, spend even more money to set up a huge international race, and then sabotage his own fuel and the race just to make people switch back to gasoline. Another annoying thing about Axelrod is his motivation. He got lost while trying to drive around the world because his engine wasn't good, and he felt mocked. That's it? An international conspiracy because of a poor engine? But what really makes him pathetic is how he gets caught. The main agent of the spy group, Finn McMissile, can't figure it out, but the big twist is uncovered by Mater, the silliest and least smart truck in the entire movie. When the most intelligent villain is defeated by the biggest goof, it makes the villain look like an embarrassing dummy, which he already is. So what's a better way to make a smart villain? Just look at Abijah Fowler from Blue Eye Samurai. Fowler is a foreign man in Japan, and everything about him screams cunning genius, even if it's a wicked genius.
I plan to cut that Shogun's head from his shoulders and reimagine this nation.
What makes him so smart is how he uses what he has. He's been stuck on an island for years, and instead of just sitting around, he mastered all the Japanese arts like painting and calligraphy, even though he hates them. He does this because he knows he needs to understand the Japanese mindset to be able to use and betray them. That's a true strategist. His intelligence also shows in how he reacts to problems. When his partners worry about the hero Mizu hunting him down, Fowler just waves them off. He's so confident in his traps and his big plan that he doesn't want to waste time worrying about, as he puts it, some malformed half-breed. Yes, that half-breed almost ended him, but anyone would have underestimated Mizu too. In fact, many parts of the movie were about the girl being underestimated until she slices her attacker open. That said, Fowler also shows his intelligence with his ultimate plan. He knows that technology wins, and while everyone else is fighting with beautiful Japanese swords, he is smuggling in powerful European flintlock muskets. He knows that a gun is just better than a sword, and he uses this advantage to burn right through the Shogun's forces like they're nothing. But here's where things get really interesting. Even in defeat, Fowler uses his brain the right way. After he was cornered by Mizu, he quickly manipulates her from killing him. He knows she's looking for her father, one of the 4 white men in Japan. So he tells her he's her only chance to find the others.
You want to find them? You need me.
He is a master manipulator who can see what people want and use it against them. He's cruel and arrogant, but he's also shrewd, which is why even though he loses the battle, he survives and stays relevant by giving the hero a new and even bigger goal. This is why Fowler remains one of the most intelligent villains ever, while Axelrod is nowhere to be found on the list. So you've got brains, the face, and the presence. These are good, but a perfect villain would need something else. Luckily for us, Judge Frollo offers that exact thing. One thing that made Frollo so memorable from The Hunchback of Notre Dame is not because of how brutal he was. Okay, that is part of it, but the main reason was his desire and belief. This was what drove the brutality he exhibited. Frollo is terrifying because his motivation is so deeply personal and so twisted that it makes his actions feel huge and unstoppable. He starts by believing he is a holy man who is doing what God wants. He genuinely thinks he's good and that the world around him is full of sin and evil. His first terrible act is murdering Quasimodo's mother on the steps of the church, and he only takes in the baby Quasimodo because the priest stops him and makes him feel like he has to raise the child to save his own soul. His goal is to purify Paris. He sees people who are different, like the Roma people, as a sickness he has to wipe out. He even uses the law to be cruel, which makes him feel like an even greater threat because he has the power of the government behind him. But the crazy thing about desire is that it tends to turn darker. It escalates. As the story unfolds, Frollo's desires don't remain the same, but worsen. He becomes obsessed with Esmeralda. He can't understand why he, this righteous man, is having these forbidden feelings for her. So he blames her for them. His motivation escalates from general prejudice to a burning personal obsession. He goes from wanting to remove a minority group to having a desperate need to find one specific person and either possess or destroy her. This change in his heart, this mixture of religious fervor and personal lust, is what makes him snap. It leads to him ordering the burning of all of Paris just to find her. And his final action is trying to kill both Esmeralda and Quasimodo on the roof of the cathedral. Dude is following a destructive passion that he truly believes is righteous, and that's why his heart is one of the darkest and most compelling in any movie. A great villain's heart is supposed to be filled with something powerful, whether it's twisted love, desperate jealousy, or a terrible sense of being right. And that motivation should get scarier as this story continues, making the hero's fight feel harder and more important. This is why a villain like Smiler from the Emoji Movie doesn't work. In Smiler's world, the job of an emoji is to make a certain face and help the phone work. Smiler is the boss, and when the main character Jean, who is supposed to be the meh emoji, messes up, he causes huge problems for the whole phone. This is where Smiler comes in, and her goal is to simply delete him. But the problem is, that's not really a scary villain motive, but her job description, which is to keep things running right in Textopolis. If someone causes a glitch that could wipe the whole phone and make everyone die or get deleted, then getting rid of the problem makes perfect sense. Deleting Jean is a bit extreme, sure, but it's what she's supposed to do to protect everyone else. When a bad guy's motivation is just to follow the rules, it's impossible to get truly scared of them. It makes her feel one-dimensional, like a character in a rule book instead of a real threat. The movie missed a chance to make her truly wicked. What if Smiler wanted to delete Jean because she saw him becoming popular or different, and she worried he would take her spot as the most famous or most loved emoji? That would have been a truly evil personal motive driven by jealousy and ego, not just her management duties. A villain who is driven by selfish, personal spite feels much more dangerous than one who is just doing necessary maintenance. So, with no real passion or desire, Smiler lacked the heart that could have made her a real bad guy. The only thing she seemed to have little of was this next trait of a perfect villain. Smiler had power, but only a little bit, like the kind an HR manager has. A truly perfect villain would have a power that dominates and doesn't stay the same for long. One who wants to continue ruling and conquering. The kind of power Ambessa from Arcane has. Yes. The truly terrifying part of Ambessa's power is her cunning and strategy. She's got brawn, sure, but also brains. Her whole storyline is like a slow-acting poison that takes over without anyone noticing. She plays a huge, complex game of chess in the shadows. Think about it. She arrives in a city that is having trouble, and step by step, she quietly manipulates everything, ruling over the Noxian army and conquering several territories. She was already powerful, but she needed more power, and because Piltover has shown that potential to be a world leader, she came for it. She could have straight up attacked the city and taken the throne. However, she knew a much better way that gets her everything she wants. Besides, her daughter, Mel, was a leader in Piltover, which kinda complicates things.
You have no inkling what family is to me.
So, what does she do? She plays on people's fears and ambitions to pit two rival cities against each other. She uses that chaos to set up martial law, and she gets her hands on the powerful Hextech technology. Her transition into the most formidable threat in the show happens so smoothly that you almost don't realize she has already won until she's standing over everyone, controlling the entire conflict. But another thing that shows Ambessa's power is her strength in combat. This woman is so badass that she doesn't even need her soldiers to help her out when she faced Mel and Caitlyn during her last stand. That's real power, dominating the stage through brawn, strategy, and quiet control. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said about Scarlet Overkill. Many people say Scarlet was great because the writers intended for her to be the way she is, and we get that. But isn't that why she's so forgettable? Besides, why make a mid-villain when you can make something great? Scarlet would have been really powerful, but her only strong moment is a stage scene where she recruits henchmen and looks fierce for like 5 seconds. Following that, she just hands the big work to 3 bumbling minions and sits back while they stumble into success. And worse, her gadgets, her jetpacks, the whole flashy show comes from Herb, who builds and invents for her. But even with him, she's still all bark and no bite. She never shows the same patient, cold craft that Ambessa uses. She brags, but she rarely makes hard moves herself. And because the story keeps outsourcing her power to others, the audience stops being afraid and starts being bored. Whereas Ambessa earns every corner she takes because she plans, she trains, and she burns bridges when needed. Scarlet, on the other hand, just borrows a throne and never learns how to sit on it without help. But the final and most important piece of making the perfect villain can best be explained using Tai Lung. Tai Lung is set up as an unstoppable monster right from the start. He's a perfect martial arts master who was betrayed by his father figure, Shifu, and his entire life has been focused on one goal: getting the Dragon Scroll to prove he is the greatest warrior ever. Because his whole story is built on this epic quest, his final battle has to be just as epic. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Fall. Every villain has a moment where everything finally comes crashing down, and this moment only feels strong if the story has built it the right way. Think of it like climbing a tall hill. If the hill is small, the fall will be too. But if the hill is huge, the fall feels huge. Tai Lung's fall in Kung Fu Panda works so well because the story takes time to show how dangerous he is, how angry he is, and how badly he wants the scroll. Watch how the story handles his last fight. Po walks into the room out of breath, and Tai Lung laughs at him.
Him? He's a panda. You're a panda. What are you gonna do, big guy? Sit on me?
But as their fight starts, Po keeps getting back up, bouncing, rolling, doing things Tai Lung does not expect. Each moment brings Tai Lung closer to the truth he never wanted to see. Then the scroll opens. Tai Lung waits for magic, but he sees nothing, just his own face. That tiny moment is one of the most powerful parts of his fall. A villain who spent his whole life wanting a prize finally learns that there was never a secret power waiting for him. It hits him harder than any punch Poe throws. So he loses control. He fights Poe again, wilder this time, and Poe beats him with moves that feel silly but still work. And then the whooshy finger hold ends it. A bright flash and Tai Lung is gone. His fall feels big because everything before it was big. It simply matches the path he took. Now, let's look at a villain whose fall felt weak and unearned. Evelyn Dever from Incredibles 2. Evelyn is introduced as a brilliant, cool, and super smart technology whiz, who is secretly the screenslaver. Her goal is based on a terrible trauma. Her parents died because they tried to save themselves instead of waiting for a superhero. And now she believes people are too weak because they rely on heroes. She decides the best solution is to use mind control to keep supers illegal forever. And here is where her fall makes no sense. Supers were already illegal. Her whole complicated citywide plot to hurt people and make them hate heroes was trying to achieve something that was already the law. So, because her motivation was so completely illogical, her grand scheme didn't translate into a great threat. If the reason you're fighting doesn't make sense, your defeat won't feel important. It's that simple. A great villain's end, like Tai Lung's, must be the logical conclusion of everything they are. When a villain's crash is weak, it makes the whole story feel like it took a shortcut. And that's the fastest way to ruin all the hard work that came before. And speaking about endings, the way a villain falls is every bit as important as how a movie ends. Luckily for you, we have a video right here that shows you the exact way to end a movie.